my name is Allie Van Linkendonk, and this is my presentation comparing different professions, comparing professional counselors with clinical psychologists, social psychologists, and recreational therapists. To begin with a brief history of professional counseling. Professional counseling originated in the 1800s when it first emerged as vocational guidance, a product of social reform movements. In the 1900s, Frank Parsons, the father of vocational guidance, opened the Bureau of Vocational Guidance. In the 1940s, counselors were needed to help World War II veterans, and in 1942, Carl Rogers published Counseling and Therapy, advocating for a client-centered approach to psychotherapy. In 1952, the American Personnel and Guidance Association was created to provide counselors with a professional association. And in 1976, the American Mental Health Counselors Association, or the AMHCA, was created. The American Counselors Association, or ACA, was created in 1983. And in 1992, counseling was included as a primary health profession. A few brief histories on the three other professions I've selected. First, clinical psychology. In 1896, Leitner Whitmer opened the first psychological clinic, and in 1907, Whitner first published the term clinical psychology in an essay. In 1970, the American Association of Clinical Psychology was established, and in 1919, the American Psychological Association replaced the AACP. Recreational therapy. In the 1850s, Florence Nightingale proposed the idea of recreational therapy. In the 1930s, the term recreational therapy was first coined by the Menninger brothers, and in the 1940s, recreational therapy advanced as a profession. For social psychology, being one of the more recent professions, in 1900 dates the earliest social psychological experiments, and in 1908, the first social psychology textbook was released. In 1954, social psychology began to become more refined as a field of study, and between the 1970s and 1980s, this field of study began to grow with the help of new technology, such as computers and things like that. As of the 21st century, the study of social psychology continues to expand. So, some current professional aspects and standards of these careers. To practice professional counseling, you must obtain a master's degree, and you must have earned 60 hours of graduate level credits, completed 600 hours of supervised clinical work, and taken the National Counselor's Examination or some other examination recognized by your state to become a licensed professional counselor, or LPC. This license is recognized in all 50 states, and the annual income for this profession in Texas averages to be around $70,000 a year. Clinical psychology. In order to be a clinical psychologist, you must first obtain a doctorate in psychology through a program accredited by the APA, or American Psychological Association. Then you must undergo 1,750 hours of supervised clinical work within your doctoral program. This is followed by 1,750 hours of supervised clinical work outside of your completed doctoral program. Finally, you must pass the examination for professional practice in psychology and jurisprudence examinations. The average income for this profession in Texas is anywhere between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. For recreational therapy, to work as a recreational therapist, you must have a bachelor's degree or higher from an accredited program. You must be nationally certified as a Certified Therapeutic Recreation Specialist, or CTRS, through the National Council for Therapeutic Recreation Certification. You must also have 640 hours from a formal internship, and after receiving your certification, you must maintain your credentials every 5 years. The average income for a recreational therapist in Texas is around $55,000 a year. For social psychology, you can have any degree from a bachelor's to a doctorate. However, a master's or a doctorate are preferred. It is also crucial to have internship hours under the supervision of a licensed psychologist. And finally, you'll want to become a licensed psychologist and receive board certification. While the American Board of Professional Psychology does not offer a certification in social psychology, it does offer certifications in similar fields of study. The average income for this profession in Texas is about $65,000 a year. So some of the similarities from these professions to counseling, the first being how all of these professions require some sort of certification or licensure to ensure that the people practicing in these fields have gotten the proper education and are well suited to go out and work in this field helping others. And furthermore, to complete your education, you must take a licensure exam, and you also must meet the required number of internship hours in all four of these fields of study. Um, you must have also been supervised by a licensed psychologist. And all of this, again, is just to ensure that going into this career, you have the proper, you're properly equipped to go out and work in the field. You have enough experience, and you've been supervised by someone who has even more experience than you do, which is just so reassuring to know how much education and time and work goes into gaining these certifications to go out in the field and work in really such a crucial field in the world of health. And then finally, all of these professions share the same goal, even though in different capacities, to serve those in need of psychological help and to further the research in their individual field. So all of these fields are very different, whether that's, mental health, typical psychology, social psychology, the physical. They're all very different, but they all work to the same goal to help those who are in need and also to further the research of their individual field of study. All of these fields are relatively recent in the world of clinical work, I believe, dating as, early on as like the 1800s, which is still fairly recent. So there's still so much in these fields that we don't know, and all of them are just working towards that knowledge in their individual field, even if they're so different in what their goal and what their aim is. So, on to some differences. One of the biggest differences between these professions is the mode in which they administer psychological help. From social psychology to physical to mental, these all vary in purpose from professional counseling. Another difference between the professional counseling and the selected professions is how recent professional counseling is. Compared to the three other fields, it is more recent than the other three. And so it's one of the least developed, and we're still learning a lot about it. We're still learning a lot about social psychology too, but as a group, professional counseling just stands out and how recent it is. And then my personal reaction to my research, while researching these professions, my initial reaction was surprised at the amount of education and hours of time someone has to give to receive a license to practice. You have to have years of education, that 4 years of getting a bachelor's, and then on top of that, receiving a master's and even a doctorate. Just all of the time and work you have to do into that alone. And then you have to do all of your internship hours, and you have to study for all of these exams. And there's just so much work that goes into pursuing this career in this field. And this just gives me a sense of security knowing that the people hired to help others in these ways are qualified to administer this psychological aid to those who need it. And after examining the requirements for these various careers, I had a hard time determining any cons in these fields. The only thing that really stood out to me was how new a lot of these professions are and how there's still so much we don't know. Psychology is just so solely aimed at the human body and the human brain, and there's still so much about it that we don't know, and people are constantly coming in with new ailments or new issues or things like that we still don't fully grasp. And so in this field there's just so much that we don't know yet, and I think that's really the only con that I could come up with personally. That concludes my presentation. Other than my references, here's my first slide of references and my second slide. Thank you.